Hello and welcome to BadgerCam. In this week's video I'm going to be build reviewing the new 1/48 scale OV-10A Bronco by ICM. Straight off the bat you can see what drew me to this kit, so yeah, we can insert the standard issue comment about the box art, though it is really nicely done, isn't it? It looks like a still from a movie. ICM sure know how to bait a hook. Anyway, I've been looking forward to building this odd looking close air support craft from the Vietnam War ever since I learned that the prototype was made in a garage by two Marines and that the Bronco was one of the few aircraft to be retired and then returned back to service later on. Anyway, without further ado, let's get this kit open and start building it. Upon opening the kit you can tell straight away that the kit's well made. All of the parts are crisp and sharp and fit together very well. The first thing that the kit has you do is build the cockpit, which is pretty standard issue as far as steps go. One thing I want to mention early on now though, is that if you build this without adding any weight, this kit will be a tail sitter and needs a fair bit of weight added behind the cockpit to get it to sit on its wheels. This isn't mentioned in the instructions and I just want to put it out there now so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. As far as building goes though, the kit goes together fantastically and it has tons and tons of scale detail, even if a few of these bits are quite fiddly to install. I guess that's the price you pay though. Now, with the cockpit done, it's time to get in there with a paintbrush and get this area painted before it becomes a struggle to get at later. I opted to use a Tamiya neutral grey XF53 as I didn't have the proper colour match, which is ghoul grey for this area. Once I'd got this all coated though, it was a case of going around and picking out all of the details. Though the instructions do a good job of saying what colour to paint what part, a quick Google search will give you a better idea of what things look like in there. I quite enjoyed this stage of the build as there are tons of interesting bits and pieces to pick out and a few decals to be added at this stage as well, a few warning labels that go on the seats and headrests. I opted for the quick decal route when it came to the instrument panel, though you could paint these parts as they're all nicely detailed and moulded in. Now once you've finished with the cockpit, it's onto the main fuselage. It's a weird shape. I've not built anything shaped like this before, but it has its own charm. There's a few last little details to add to the sides before the two main parts together, a few boxes and switches and the like, along with the windscreen supports. I've seen a few other reviews where people have had trouble lining these bits up, but I didn't have this problem when I came to putting in the clear parts later on. Again though, no issues to report with this stage of the build, everything goes together really well. And it's living up to the expectations I've had of a lot of the new ICM kits, as I think they've really upped the game. Now, you can see here, as I'm building this bit, where my thumb is now, this is the best bit to add weight to the model to get it to sit on its wheels. Don't do what I did and leave it till the end and have to start taking the model apart again to add it later. When it comes to what weight this was, I didn't weigh the clay I used to balance it, but I reckon it was about a ping pong ball size of polymer clay that I ended up adding to the engine areas later on. I had some trouble with the front undercarriage. This stage is a little bit fiddly. The instructions ask you not to add glue to some of these bits, but I glued them up as I was struggling to get them to stay in the right place. Now with the forward fuselage done, it's time to move on to the upper wings. The instructions are going to start asking you to drill holes for certain weapon systems, so just make sure you have an idea of which version you want to build at this stage. If you want to make a certain type of plane from a certain group, that is, there's a nice little guide for what payloads went on what birds at the back of the instructions, or you can simply do what I do and add what looks or sounds the coolest. But again, with this stage of the build, nothing odd to report. Everything was nice and easy and fitted together really well. Now the upper wings and forward fuselage done, it's onto my least favourite stage of this build, the rear fuselage undercarriage. This part you really don't want to do if you've had a stressful day at work. I struggled with this. The undercarriage in here was really fiddly. It's well made, but a bugger to fit together, so take your time and go slow here. I felt like I needed free hands for this bit. I reckon I faffed around with these tiny little bits for well over an hour before I got them to go as I wanted them to. And unfortunately this wasn't the end of the trouble with these parts. I had some trouble with these bits later on. The plastic's quite soft and kind of sags under the weight of the plane, and later on in painting I found them quite delicate. I think I broke them twice and repaired them twice. In hindsight, as I do with a lot of planes, I'd have preferred to add them at the end of the build, but the triangular shape they are, I don't think it would be possible with how they go in. But anyway, once these bits are done, it's back onto an easy, enjoyable build with everything going together well. I don't think I needed to fill any gaps or clamp any of these parts together for the whole build, which is a real, heads up to the ICM guys. Absolutely cracking job they've done there. There's also loads of details in the wheel wells, and if you wanted to paint them nicely, now's the time to do it, though I opted to paint them later on as no one ever really sees up into the wheel wells. This is where I had my mini disaster though. After adding the tail booms to the plane, it asks you to add the wheels. These are easy and straightforward to do, but it was at this time, once putting it on its wheels, that I realised it was a tail sitter, so I had to go back in and prise the forward engine areas apart and add loads of clay there. This just about fixed it, but it was a fine line balance wise. If it's on a flat surface, it sits on its wheels. If it's slightly uphill, it's on its tail. If it's downhill, not a problem. In hindsight, I should have used fishing shot or something heavier pound for pound, but polymer clay was what I had on hand at the time. Thankfully though, the glue hadn't set properly, so prizing these parts apart was fairly easy. I should have really seen this coming though, but in all honesty I was having so much fun with the build that this never crossed my mind once the whole time. Now with that disaster behind us, there's just a few little bits to add, and that's the plane build pretty much done, other than the payload options. Unfortunately, I missed filming this bit, but as you can see from this photo, ICM give you tons and tons of bombs and rocket pods to go on these aeroplanes. I still haven't quite made up my mind what to put on the plane. Maybe they gave me too many options. But once you've got these bits done, this is the plane once it's all painted and the decals are added. Now my one's not 100% complete. I do want to do a separate video on the weathering of this aircraft, but at the moment I'm waiting for a can of clear coat to arrive to seal it all in. But in conclusion, I've really enjoyed building this kit. Other than a few fiddly bits along the way, everything goes together well. The details are great, nice, clean and crisp panel lines and rivet marks. The instructions are clear and precise, and the paint guides are in full colour. The only things that really let this kit down is the fact that it fails to mention it needing weight to make it sit on its wheels, which I should have really seen coming, and the fact that the undercarriage plastic's a little bit soft and sags a little bit. That's a little bit more of a nitpicky one. But other than that, it's been an enjoyable build. It comes with tons of options for payloads and has lots of nice thin decals that really conform to the model's shape and go over the rivet lines and such like. Also, the clear parts are nice and clear. They're not really thick and distorting, meaning that all of that work painting the cockpit earlier on is not wasted. If you're thinking about getting this kit, I'd say go for it. Though it might be nice to get some metal aftermarket undercarriage parts just to make that part a little bit easier, a little bit more refreshing. But other than that, wonderful kit, 100% would recommend. Anyway, that's my build review of the new 1/48 scale OV-10A Bronco by ICM. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Until next time though, look after yourselves and have a good one. Goodbye.